I'm Melanie Johnson along with my co-host Jenn Foster. We are both 13-time best-selling authors. We've published over 2,500 books and made all of our authors #1 bestsellers. We own Elite Online Publishing. If you want to become a best-selling author, look us up at eliteonlinepublishing.com. Now, welcome to the podcast that shares secrets from top industry experts that show you how to get lasting success and results. This is the Elite Expert Insider Podcast. Hi, this is Melanie Johnson. I'm with Jenn Foster. Hey, Jenn.
Hey, everyone.
Hey, we are hanging out today and we are talking about resilience. So if you're in the trenches and you're trying to pivot and you're having challenges and you're wondering how to be resilient, well, we're going to show you how today because we have an expert with us, Em Capito. I don't know if I said that right, Em. Is that right?
Capito, yep.
Capito, Em Capito. Okay, sorry. Em Capito's here with us today, and she is a specialist in resilience. So welcome, Em. Thanks for coming.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, so tell us, Em, how you got into this and how you got into this field.
Yeah, so I've been a psychotherapist for going on 14 years now. But resilience, in the background, it was always a piece of my interests, but they don't really train that. In our Western-driven society, we are trained around symptoms, diagnosis, and then you get into the field and you're focused on billing codes and documentation. And so I honestly didn't really enjoy my profession for a long time. And I really shifted heavily into business for a long time and loved that. Worked with visionaries, entrepreneurs, kind of took the skill set out of a clinical setting and took it into a business setting where I didn't have to deal with that medical model because I felt so limited by that. And it was just very depressing to see clients be so disempowered by the process. And I blamed myself initially. I thought I must not be a very good therapist. I need to learn more models. I need to be better at CBT and DBT and all of the acronyms. And there was this real sense of imposter syndrome and feeling inadequate until, around 2015, I went through my own personal trauma and it was so funny. It was like this bipolar experience of going through the trauma as a human. And then on the other side, being this incredibly curious, fascinated therapist that was like, wow, this is like, I get to witness this experience as an adult therapist from the inside out and try things out on myself to know like what my clients have experienced. And I'm a type A type overachiever personality anyway. And so I have to tell you, there was this piece of me that was like this competitive, I'm going to do trauma better than anyone else. Like, I'm not going to be one of those people that has PTSD or has these lingering symptoms. I'm just going to bounce right back.
Yeah.
And that was the first thing I realized is that we don't bounce back. Like, that's a whole myth. You are a transformed person after every adversity in your life. Everything changes us, and your goal isn't to come back to baseline. Your goal is to grow through it and allow it to move through and transform you so that you can become who you're meant to be. It's really the goal of adversity, is to give us contrast and appreciation and insight so that we mature. And that's when I really dug into the research and had the personal experience and then began applying it clinically. And here we are 5 years later, and it's just the most fulfilling, rewarding work I get to do.
So you kind of touched on a little bit. I mean, is that how you would define resilience, or can you go a little deeper into defining resilience?
Of course, yeah. Drawing on many greater minds than mine, including in particular the work of Viktor Frankl, who many know as the author of Man's Search for Meaning. He was an Austrian psychiatrist that was in the Holocaust and in the camps, and kind of similar piece, right? He was able to take that training and clinical background and apply it to observing what was going on in the camps. And so he defined resilience as the space between what happens to us and our response. So that space can be pretty big if we have a lot of resilience that day, or it can shrink down to next to nothing. It's a skill. It's not something we're born with, and we can't build it up and then just keep it. It's like going to the gym anybody can do it and anyone can learn resilience, but it requires some awareness and practice.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Jenn, we can't hear you. Jenn, I think you're.
Yeah, I'm muted. It's all good. Yeah, so I had a little bit of feedback, so I wanted to make sure I couldn't hear that in there. I was gonna say, given the, with the pandemic that we're kind of in right now, what do you recommend to your clients to kind of overcome that and restore that and get their resilience back?
Yeah, so crisis, as we already mentioned, is this opportunity and it's inevitable. Obviously, the pandemic is on a level that none of us expected, but crises happen all the time. And when we're in the midst of crisis, we tend to default to one of two default mechanisms. We either ignore the call to action and retreat into apathy, which we've seen in the pandemic of people that are like, I'm not wearing a mask. I'm just still going to go out. I'm having a barbecue. Or the flip side of that is we try to control the crisis through a storm of activity, which is most of us type A people, right? Like, I'm just going to plan my way through this and somehow prevent the impact on my life. And both of these resistance tactics deny the new reality in front of us. Adversity is an inevitable part of our life, but suffering is not. We sabotage our own peace and happiness when we pinball between fight or flight reactivity from one predictably unexpected challenge to the next, because there's always one coming around the corner. And this is where we get stuck, right? And feel helpless instead of becoming the hero of our own journeys by accepting, embracing the change, and leaning into the discomfort of the unknown. Given that every new challenge and every new opportunity even is fraught with the unknown, so whether it's losing our job or getting a promotion, literally everything we want in our lives has a prerequisite of resilience. And when we have that resilience, we liberate our peace and happiness from happy conditions. We can have it at any time.
Yeah, I love that.
Sorry, you mentioned discomfort. So why do you emphasize intentional discomfort?
This was my first aha moment in my own personal journey back when I was reeling from just trauma. And initially, you're just getting through the day. But then there comes this point where you're ready to move forward. And I had this like strong intuition in this one moment to book a trip to Puerto Rico. And I talk about this in my TEDx talk, so some people are already familiar with it. But I had never traveled alone. I had never traveled to like a Spanish speaking country. Puerto Rico, obviously you don't even need a passport, but it feels very foreign once you get out of the beaten path. Yeah. And so this was a huge, uncomfortable thing for me, but I just followed that intuition. I'm also like a very frugal planner, right? Like I said, I'm type A. I normally have a spreadsheet for every trip before I go on it. And this was so out of character for me. I didn't do any price checking. I didn't like comparison shop. It was, I think, 2.5 or 3 weeks away. I just booked the trip, booked a place to stay, did Airbnb for the first time in my life, which was an interesting experience. There's a learning curve, right? That whole thing. My Airbnb didn't have hot water, so that was an interesting challenge. It also had chickens everywhere and no locking doors, and was inhabited by like 7 hippies who were like smoking pot all night. It was, one thing after the next. And I didn't tell really anyone that I was going except for a couple family members at the last minute. And they were, of course, very freaked out. And so that added to the anxiety. But stepping onto the plane was just this wave of discomfort, getting off the plane, picking up a rental car for the first time by myself, finding my way via GPS in a foreign country where the roads are not really mapped all that well to my Airbnb, and settling in by myself, finding my way to, of course, a beach bar as soon as possible to have some amazing fish tacos and just start to unravel and unpack this experience. By the time I came home, I knew like there was this transformational component to what I did, but I couldn't quite name what it was. And it took a few months of continuing to repeat that cycle of stepping into the unknown, stepping into challenging experiences before I landed on that. I was like, this is intentional discomfort. It's like resilience training. And it's necessary now because we exist in it's an unprecedented time of comfort, right? You can retreat into a climate controlled home or office, right? For most of us, it's at home right now, and we have every creature comfort. I know my COVID shopping included all sorts of comfort food.
Yeah.
And, we've got our minky blankets and, down pillows. Our lives are incredibly comfortable. And it's a natural survival instinct to stay in safe spaces, right? That makes sense.
Yes.
And so we don't have the natural environment of challenge and hard work that we used to have to confront every single day that maintained a level of resilience and confidence and self-efficacy. And so we have to go out and create it. This is why we say that children are resilient, right? Because every single day they're learning something new. They're constantly exposed to new challenges. And so they're comfortable with challenge every single day. But as adults, once we're out of college and into our careers and settled into our marriages or our lives, we are no longer given that natural incoming challenge all of the time. And the resilience we used to have atrophies down around us until we're fairly suffocated. And so many adults nowadays are reporting extremely high levels of anxiety, depression, feeling social anxiety at unprecedented levels where we can't even talk to other people. We don't want to pick up the phone because it causes anxiety to have a phone call. And these are all symptoms of a widespread epidemic of a lack of resilience.
Yeah, I love how you were saying you almost seeking out that discomfort. My kids watch some YouTubers who they're influencers who that's their motto is seek discomfort. And the first time I heard it, I almost thought it was a negative. I was like, what? Discomfort? No, we don't want to be we don't want to have discomfort in our lives. What do you mean seek discomfort? And then once I watched one of the videos, I realized, okay, they're challenging themselves, putting themselves out of their comfort zone. And they're pretty funny. If you ever watch them, they just wad up pieces of paper with countries on them or cities on them. And then they go there and they have to do some task that someone else told them to do, get on a radio show and have a party at a bar or something. They have to invite strangers off the street to do something. They have to do all these different things. That's just one example. But what you just explained about going to Puerto Rico and getting out of your comfort zone, it really does change you and helps you to face other challenges in your life, right?
Absolutely. That was the most fascinating piece to me that led to incorporating it into clinical practice, is that the experience of building resilience in, say, travel, which is a resiliency field trip every single time, which is what I call them resiliency field trips because it sounds a lot better than intentional discomfort. And it harkens to that nostalgia that we all have of going on a field trip and being curious and knowing that we're going to be learning, right? So we're building that resilient mindset or perspective. I am doing this intentionally, and I'm going to just observe how the fear arises, how the anxiety arises, and then I'm going to sit with it rather than running from it.
Yeah.
And we build up resilience inside travel as the example. The fascinating piece is that transfers immediately to every other aspect of our lives. So I have clients who have gone on a resiliency field trip with me. I do some group field trips throughout the year. And then they go home and they break up with their significant other, or they sign up for college and they go back to college. There's something that they want to do, or they sign up for a pottery class. Once we start engaging in resiliency field trips and this intentional discomfort, we become more comfortable. The resilience zone grows such that we start acting on our deeper, authentic, bigger picture goals and intuition.
I love that. That reminds me of the movie Eat, Pray, Love, where she has to decide to put aside everything that everyone has told her she should be and go and figure out who she should be.
Yeah, absolutely. And we don't do that very often in our culture. we get into the rat race and we're on that hedonic treadmill of accomplishment and getting to the next milestone, the next beach vacation, the next promotion. Someday when we have this paid off, or I have that car or this house or whatever it is, then I'll be happy, then I'll relax, then I'll live. But when we take that model, how we live our days is ultimately how we end up living our entire lives.
Yeah. It's so true that we, by having that discomfort and putting out, we learn and we grow and we stretch, but we don't like it. I had a psychologist one time tell me, I was saying that this just sucks. And he goes, yeah, but maybe the sucking is good, you know, and turning it around. I'm like, well, maybe, really? I don't want it to be good. But
I love it. That'll be like on the fridge, right? Maybe sucking is good.
yeah. This sucks, but that's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's so fascinating when we start engaging in this work, and I've obviously personally experienced it many times, but watch my clients experience now. It is the greatest joy. You know, I got 3 flat tires in the first year after this traumatic experience. And it was just like, you know, a typical response the first time of like many cuss words and, you know, why, you know, blaming the universe and being mad at whoever left the nail in the road, and very reactive and resistant, and it ruined my whole day. But you know, after thinking about it, I was like, okay, I could take a different tack with this. By the time AAA was supposed to arrive, I was with some female colleagues, and we decided to change the tire ourselves, right? And see if we could get it done before AAA got there. So we had this backup plan that kept us feeling like secure. But we got out there, pulled out the instructions, because with new cars, it's all packaged neatly, right? To like tire change equipment. We get out the little thing to like jack up the car, and we did all the steps backwards the first time and had to redo it. And it's pouring rain, and I parked at a downspout, and so it's just like a river. We're soaking wet, and people have gathered to watch us at this point. It's at a coffee shop, right? And mostly like 4 different men offered to do it for us. We're like, no, like we started to get into it, and we changed that tire before AAA got there by like a minute. And that became a resiliency field trip that was unplanned in and of itself. And it would have never happened had I not done the prior work of intentional discomfort field trips, so that I had that inspiration to grab this opportunity to change my first tire. And then when the next tire went, right, I think it was like 2.5 months later, I was in the car with my kids in slippers and peach jeggings. And we're late for school, headed for carpool, right? And I still cussed. It took about, 1 minute of being angry and reactive. And then I shifted so much faster into how can this be a call to adventure? If we hearken to Joseph Campbell's work on the hero's journey, right? This is a call to adventure. I don't have to resist it. The suffering is in the resistance. And so that time I turned to my teenager and I said, time me. And I jumped out, changed the tire by myself. And it's on my Instagram. I forget the number, but I was thinking it was like 12 minutes or something, right? Yeah. But the first time was like an hour and a half, right? So I was so proud of myself, and it built up even more resilience. And then a few weeks later, a girlfriend got a flat tire, and I helped her change hers. And it became this ripple effect that year of women changing tires.
Well, it's been so great having you on. Thanks for joining us.
Of course. Yeah, it's been such a pleasure. And if anyone is interested in learning more, like going deeper into resilience and how it can apply to their own lives, I have a free kit online. You just type in emcapito.com/family kit.
Great. We'll put that URL up at the bottom of the video and in the show notes for those of you who are listening on iTunes or Stitcher or TuneIn or anywhere else.
Yeah, it's been such a pleasure. Thank you so much, you guys.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us today for our podcast. And if you're thinking about writing a book or becoming an author or having your very own podcast, make sure you reach out to us at Elite Online Publishing, because we can make that happen for you. And have a super great day, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Hey, are you looking to increase your revenue, build credibility, and elevate your brand? This podcast is brought to you by Elite Online Publishing, an innovative publishing and full spectrum marketing company. They will publish and market your book to make it a #1 bestseller. Becoming an author is the best way to market your business. So contact them at eliteonlinepublishing.com today. All of their authors become #1 bestsellers.